Voice of Change News.
This is Voice of Change Radio News. I'm Amanda Kumalo. A quick look at stories making the headlines. 2023 elections are deeply rooted in liberation struggle. President Mnangagwa. In business news, China approves Zimbabwe fresh citrus exporters. In regional and international news, Glitz, glamour as diplomats unite to celebrate Africa Day. In sports news, Dembare bounce back in style. The news in detail. Harmonized elections that will be held on August 23 are a product of the liberation struggle that secured the country's independence from British colonial rule and are an important part of consolidating the nation's sovereignty, President Mnangagwa has said. The president said this in his weekly column published in the Sunday Mail, adding that the country has religiously held elections when they are due and called on Zimbabweans to maintain that proud record. President Mnangagwa last week gazetted August 23 as the day the country will go to the polls and also set out timelines for various electoral processes. In other news, Zimbabwe will continue to champion its own development in line with the Nyika Inovakwa Neve Nevayo mantra, while foreigners who want to assist the country should follow as locals take the lead, President Mnangagwa has said. Further, under the able leadership of the ruling ZANU-PF party, the relationship between the state and church will remain inseparable, while freedom of worship remains guaranteed. Addressing hordes of indigenous churches congregants at the National Convention for Apostolic and Zion for Economic Development, President Mnangagwa said development and improvement of livelihoods is the new norm under his leadership. The president said his government has introduced a raft of programs that uplift the lives of people, such as Fumvudza, which ensures food security at the household level. Moving on to business news. The General Administration of Customs of China has released a list of registered Zimbabwean orchards and packhouses for fresh citrus exports to China. This is a major boost to trade relations between Zimbabwe and China, which has become the country's largest foreign direct investment source. The government of Zimbabwe and China finalized the citrus trade protocol last year that is meant to facilitate exports of citrus products to the Asian country in order to broaden market scope for Zimbabwe. This was in fulfillment of the process that was initiated in 2015 when the country sought a market for Shashi Irrigation Scheme smallholder citrus growers. In regional news, it was all glitz and glamour at the heritage village housed at the Liberation City as diplomats accredited to Zimbabwe celebrated this year's Africa Day commemorations last Friday. The embassies exhibited dishes and clothes from their countries, with the African diplomats preparing their traditional dishes. Diplomats also cut and shared a cake as a sign of unity. The belated celebrations, which ran under the theme Accelerating of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Accelerating of the African Continental Free Trade Area implementation, and were hosted by African diplomats, were also graced by diplomats from other continents. Foreign Affairs and International Trade Deputy Minister Dr. David Msabayana thanked the African group of ambassadors for joining hands with the government to prepare for the event. Dr. Msabayana said Zimbabwe remained committed to African ideals and brotherhood. And finally, in sports news, All eyes were on Dynamo's coach Herbert Jompano Marua, who would have been fired had the Glamour boys failed to secure this Kasolaga Premier Soccer League victory against ZPC Kariba at the National Sports Stadium yesterday. The Gaffer was given a tough ultimatum to win 2 matches without fail, beginning with the clash against the struggling Kariba side yesterday and the next one against the Black Rhinos. But the former Black Rhinos mentor professed ignorance on the ultimatum, saying he only got to know about the situation through the media. Saddled with the pressure and the eggs hovering above his head, Marua yesterday overcame the first of the 2 hurdles thanks to a spirited show by the Giants yesterday. That brings us to the end of this bulletin.
Voice of Change News.